So, Bill, this is Bill. I just want to introduce him. He's a great friend of ours. We've been staying with him for the last couple of weeks in San Diego. He has an amazing story to share about cancer survival, for want of a better word, because I actually don't really like the term surviving cancer particularly. But in terms of this story, we'll just go straight into it. And hopefully, this just inspires other people to show that there is ways to come through, even when you've been told the worst possible news that you're not actually going to survive from cancer. So thank you for agreeing to speak to us, Bill, because I'm really hoping this story will help to inspire some other people. So just tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, just introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. So I'm Bill Freeman. I spent 22 years in the United States Army. I'm now retired and living in San Diego, California, happily married with kids.
Fantastic.
And of course, a little.
And we love Tracy too, because she's sitting out there listening.
Yes.
And how long ago was it when you actually had a cancer diagnosis, Bill?
It was in 1986.
Okay.
So I had been assigned to Panama, and I was preparing to run in a half marathon when I got to the point where I could hardly lift my right leg. And I was close to the hospital where I worked at the time. And so I went to the emergency room, and the doctors checked me out and told me that I was fortunate that it was muscular and not skeletal. And he sent me down to the physical therapist to have some manipulations, and then I would leave after that. But when I went there, she told me just the opposite. She said it's skeletal. It's not physical. It's not muscular. And so she asked me to get one of the captains, at the time I was a major, to sign an x-ray request because she couldn't do it as a technician. So I had him to sign it. And the next morning I was in a briefing in the briefing room, and there were 4 or 5 of us at the head table. I was conducting the briefing. And the hospital commander, who was a doctor, a radiologist by trade, was tapping on the window outside of the briefing room. He was at the other end of the room, and I could see him through the window. And he's pointing at the table, so I'm pointing at the individuals at the table. Ultimately, I pointed to myself, and he shook his head and nodded for me to come out. So when I went out, he had said that I needed to go to Washington, which was not unusual. And I asked him why, and he said, well, you have a tumor in your hip. He says, and what you'll do, he says, you probably will be there for about 3 or 4 weeks. They will cut the tumor out, pack it with bone, and you will be back here within the next month or so. After having been in the hospital for quite some time and reading up on what was seen there, I'm sure that he knew better than that, having been a radiologist. Anyway, long story short, when I went to the hospital, I went to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, which was a great hospital, and they did a biopsy of the tumor that they found on my right iliac crest. It was 8 centimeters in diameter. And they took a part of it and did a biopsy on it. And the general, Major General Malone, came to my room and told me that they had assigned the best bone doctor in the U.S. Army to my case, which really made me feel good. And it took about 3 weeks before I saw the bone doctor again. He came in, told me they were going to do a biopsy. They did the biopsy, and about 3 weeks afterwards, he came back in my room, and I had seen him a couple of times because I wanted to start training again, running. And he says, no, you can't do that because if it cracks, we will have to treat it as though it's malignant. So I couldn't run, but I kept asking him. Well, this one morning he came in at 5 something in the morning, And he came in the room and stopped at the door. And I saw him, and when I spoke to him, and he was teary eyed. He had tears in his eyes. And so I asked him if everything was okay, and he shook his head. He didn't say anything. But he said that he has the results of my biopsy back. And I asked him, I said, is everything okay? And I could see his eyes welling up with more tears. And so I got up and went to the window, was looking out the window, and he says, I said, well, what is it? He says, well, he said, it's disease of the blood forming cells. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, it's cancerous. I said, then is there a cure? He says, not to our knowledge. I said, well, what can I do? He says, get close to God in your family. So I just continued to look out the window, and he asked me if I had any questions. I told him no, primarily because I wanted to be alone. I'm sure I was teary-eyed at the time. And then he left. So my car was down in the basement of the parking garage, so I went down and just kind of cried my head off. Afterwards, so I had a lot of questions that I would have loved to have asked him. One of the things that he did say was that he had assigned an oncologist to my case who would be contacting me. And I won't call the oncologist's name, but he was a captain working at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in the oncology department. So I went to see him a couple of days later, and they sent me down to the radiology department, and they put some manipulations on my stomach because the radiation that I would receive would go through my stomach to my right iliac crest where the tumor was, and that's where they would hit the tumor. On either hand, I went to see my oncologist, and he said, yes, you have a disease of the blood forming cell, and it is a pre-stage of multiple myeloma, which we have no cure for. And I says, what does that mean? He says, well, that means that this is going to more than likely kill you. And I said, well, how much time do I have? He said, well, it's hard to say, but normally about a year or two. And I told him, I said, I don't feel like I'm dying. I feel quite healthy. He says, well, you need to accept the fact that this is going to kill you. And it was very, very difficult for me. I went from 195, 198 down to 163 because I just couldn't sleep at night thinking about that. Anyway, I went through the radiation, which was fascinating within itself. It was a blue beam shining it and on my stomach area for seconds, probably 10, 15 seconds. And after about, I guess, after going through it twice, that area was just black. I mean, it was just, and it was covered. I couldn't wash it. And I had to cover up the simulations of red lines on it. So, and that dictated where the radiation would go. So long story short, as I went to see my oncologist, he continued to say, this is going to kill you and you need to accept it, which I found very depressing. And so finally, I went to the chief oncologist, a colonel, and I told him I needed a new doctor. And he says, why? And I told him, because I keep going to this doctor, and I called his name. I said, and he keeps telling me that this is going to kill me. And that's not what I need to hear. Even if it was going to kill me, which I don't feel like it will, that's not what I need to hear. So the colonel said, okay. He said, we'll get you a new doctor. So he changed my doctor to another doctor. And when I met with that doctor, he asked me how I felt. I said, I feel fine. And he said, you know what your diagnosis is? I said, yes, I know. And he said, as far as we're concerned, Bill, he said, this is cured. He says, this is cured. And I told him, thank you, because that's the way I feel. I feel that this is not going to kill me. And so, long story short, they radiated that, and it was a short period of time, about a week, no more than 2 weeks. And over time, I started back to running, and I would probably run maybe 2 or 3 miles a day. Um, and I continued to be an inpatient at the hospital. But I had a bed, I had a meal ticket, and I could stay in the hospital if I wanted to, but I could also leave. But at nights, I had to be in the hospital because I was considered an inpatient for that period of time. Over a period of time of about 2-3 months, Major General Malone came in my room. He was the commanding officer of that hospital, and told me that he was sending his aide to out-process me. Out-process me because that meant that I was getting a medical discharge from the Army. And so his aide came to my room to out-process me, to escort me to the various areas so that I could go through the out-processing procedure. And I told him that I wanted to see the general. So the general came down the next morning, and I told him, I said, I'm not prepared to get out of the military. The things that I've been doing in the military, they don't have a need for in the civilian world. And he says, well, your diagnosis. I says, yes. He says, so I tell you what, he says, I will leave you in the military, but you have to promise me that if and or when this returns, you'll take a medical discharge, you will get disability, and you'll live your life to the best that you can. And I told him, I says, I'll give you my word on that. That never returned. It never returned. 2 years later, by the way, Major General Malone passed away from cancer. And here I am here today with that. I truly believe that my state of mind had and still has a lot to do with that. Once I was relocated from Walter Reed and resumed my active duty in the U.S. Army, I retired, but I continued to see an oncologist in San Antonio. And after about 2 years, that oncologist told me that I was wasting my time and his time. He said that he had people that were really sick and he needed to treat them. And I told him, fine. He said, if that has not returned by now, it's not going to return. I tell this story because I truly believe that your mental state of mind going through various illnesses has a lot to do with the outcome of any particular illness. In my case, it was diagnosed as cancer, but I never felt like I was going to die. I never felt like it was going to kill me. I always felt fine. I could run, although they had said, no, don't do that yet. Had an appetite. I lost weight because I was worried about the diagnosis that was given to me, and it was a shock. So I tell this story just because I know other people are going through similar situations that I went through. As hard as it was, I never lost hope that that wasn't going to kill me. I always maintained a positive state, although I lost appetite, worried after I was told, and lost the weight that I lost, which I gained back over time. But I just truly feel that your state of mind has a lot to do with the outcome of not just cancer, but of illnesses, period. I think that if you roll over and say, that's it, I give up, that's going to be the result. However, I think that if you maintain a positive state of mind, I think that it will help your body progress and heal. And I'm not saying that it healed the cancer. All I'm saying is that I never felt like that was going to kill me. I never gave up the fact that I was going to live through that. Um, and as a result, here I am here today. That was in 1986.
Yeah.
And here I am here today, fine. I run, I work out in the gym, 2 kids, and we're doing fine.
Yeah, and that's just, and thank you for sharing all that, Bill, because it's just an amazing story. And I understand though, you did make some other little changes, like your diet a bit as well, didn't you?
I did. Yes, I did. I do watch what I eat because I pay better attention to my body now than I did years ago as a much younger individual. Then I'd eat anything that I wanted. Now I don't. I don't eat a lot of greasy foods. I watch what I eat and I exercise. So I think that matters as well. I think that you just, aside from maintaining a healthy state of mind about your health, I think that you have to take care of your health as well.
Yeah.
By eating the proper foods, and we know what they are, and we know what they are not. So I think that has helped me as well, and it's also helped the family.
Yeah. And you can see you're very fit and well.
Yes,
and you go out and play golf, don't you? And
yes.
Do you still run?
I don't run anymore, primarily because of my age, and I also had one knee replacement. But we do go to the gym normally 3 days a week. We work out. We walk in the morning. We try and walk 4 days a week, about 2 miles a day, and we live a good life, and we're healthy. We get checkups on a regular basis, and we don't have any problems. I do have, from where the tumor was, anytime I take an x-ray, I have an x-ray of my hip, you'll see a dark spot where calcium has filled in that area where the tumor was. But it's not a problem. I just think that aside from maintaining a positive state of mind, you have to watch what you eat. You have to eat healthy. You have to live a healthy life. And we do that. And my wife and I do that, and we are happy and healthy. So, and I'm not saying we don't catch a cold here or there, but we don't have any serious health issues. So I thank God that diagnosis that I had probably helped me a whole lot. It helped me realize that life is not promised.
Yeah.
You have to look out for yourself, but you also have to maintain a positive state of mind. Even if you're given bad news, be positive about it, because I really believe that the way you feel about yourself often dictates the way your body responds to certain things. And I thank God that I'm here today. I'm healthy. I get regular physicals, and I don't have any significant health issues.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your very inspirational story. It really is truly inspirational. I mean, that's nearly 40 years now that you've been cancer free.
Yeah.
And it's just remarkable, and it does show that the body really does have the power to listen to the brain. And you were so focused, weren't you, all the way through the fact that you weren't going to die, that the fact that this wasn't going to beat you, the fact that you didn't feel like you were going to die, and in my opinion, the body will listen to that messages that you're sending through. That I'm not going to die. I don't feel like I'm going to die. So why am I going to die? And and the more that you actually are feeding those messages through, the body can actually respond to those messages. It's like the placebo effect. If we actually believe that something is working for us, then actually it can truly work for us. So thank you so much. That's just been really amazing, and I hope that other people get loads from this story. So thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking time to listen to my story.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing it.